The Sock Jig Sneaker Podcast will not be seeing you in Valhalla. Because I'm a brown man, there's no brown people in a pagan heaven. Just to be clear. Welcome to episode 84 of the Sock Jig Sneaker Podcast. I'm your host, Sock Jig. You can follow me on Twitter at SockJig and on Instagram as well. A lot of topics in this one. I talk about recent releases, including Supreme Dunks and how they're not taking enough chances lately with their Nike collabs, the Costco SB and how dad culture is seemingly taking over youth culture. I talk about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Air Max 95 release and how that was a dot swoosh sneaker, but one that was not available for pre-order. I also talk about the Asics Tomo release and how a bunch of adult men from multiple boutiques got together and made a sneaker about mood rings. Something that grade 7 girls wear, mood rings. I talk about the SoleFly 3 and how Complex has been calling it the sneaker rollout of the year. And also cover recent news including Nike settling their lawsuit with StockX, Nike suing retailers for unpaid bills, and Freeman is back and she's the president of Foot Locker North America. She was the one who worked at Nike and her son was a prolific sneaker reseller, and how everyone just assumed that she was backdooring sneakers directly from the sneakers app to her son. I had the truth about that a long time ago in the early episodes, so we revisit that for a little bit. I talk about Chinatown Market and how they regret changing their name and they kind of want it back. I also talk about the Tom Sachs release and how he's essentially bullying Nike now to let him do what he wants, it seems, and how ultimately it was a release that made a lot of people happy, a lot of his fans happy at least. I also talk about his appearance on the Complex podcast and this loser sneaker that he's releasing. I also talk about GOAT shutting down warehouses in UK and Asia and how I've heard that it's basically because of this de minimis change that's happening, that those sneakers that used to come in from UK or Asia as under retail can no longer do so. I also talk about SSense and how it's under bankruptcy protection and how it could be the end of big multi-brand retail, both online and offline, brick and mortar. Which leads to the main segment where I talk about how culturally there's been this shift going on where more and more industries are shifting to the affluent portion of their customer base because they can simply make more money from them. And then how this is also affecting the sneaker world and how Nike and other brands are also doing the same thing, albeit a little bit more slowly and methodically. So there's a ton of topics, and that's why this podcast is unique. That's why these episodes take me weeks to put together. I'm almost never riffing on here, almost always have topics that I've been thinking about and chewing over, and I'm presenting them in a way that gives you the most value out of a sneaker podcast listening experience, I hope. Basically, all killer, no filler is what I'm saying. So all that coming up, but first, what's on feet and pickups. On feet lately, I've been wearing some Jordan 1 lows. I wore the Ghost Green lows, which are really light neon green, and it's got some exposed foam as well too. A good summer shoe. I wore some Travis 1 lows. I wore Bread 1 lows, which are from like 2016 or so. And I wore the Royal 1 lows, which are also from 2016. And those ones came back this year, but I still have the old pairs. So Jordan 1 lows, just a good summer shoe. And also still been wearing my OG Spiridons as well too as my everyday by the door shoes. For pickups, I got the CPFM sponge gold one. That was the only one I entered for, and I hit the raffle on that. I guess some people were hitting all 3 raffles if you have some purchase history with CPFM. I bought like the sock purse a long time ago, and I bought socks from them and a couple t-shirts and stuff in the past as well too. So that is my purchase history. This was one of those sneakers where everyone kind of wanted to know beforehand if they were going to flip or not, just because how ugly they are. And with CPFM, most of the time they do hit. Even those like Oscar the Grouch ones sell for like $350 US or so. But I joked on Twitter, these really do look like a dorm mattress topper just folded into a shoe shape. And people were saying, rightly saying, that the exposed foam is going to look horrible. It really does look like gray and black and tattered after a while. I said in a reply to my friend Doug that it seems like most CPFM shoes are just made to wear in that current season that they're released in. They're not meant to store and wear 2 years later. There are some exceptions like the Swarovski crystal ones or even the Air Force ones with the sunshine and stuff written on the side. But any of their wilder sneakers, it's probably the best idea just to wear them right away, let them wear out, and then just get rid of them. I also picked up the Adidas Brain Dead and Brody King collab. These are the Adidas Japan lows. And these are not the general release version that came out. There's a pair that was low in with blue flames and one with yellow flames. This only released in LA at a Brain Slam event, which Brain Dead puts on, and Brody King is from LA, so it's a real genuine collab with a wrestling tribute to it. And Brain Dead is involved in the local wrestling scene, so I'm a big AEW fan, I'm a big Brody King fan, so I did not get them online. They released only online and only at that event, so I really am guessing there's only a few hundred pairs. There's not that many listings of them on the apps or on eBay. And that's where I got it from. I just went on eBay and I was able to get a decent deal in the 200s. And this is actually my first time paying resale for a sneaker in a couple years. I really haven't paid for much at all. So I tried them on. They really are flat and low, and they are kind of like a Asics Tai Chi sneaker. And if you're a drummer, they would actually be good drumming shoes because you would get the real good pedal feel on it. A lot of drummers actually do wear Asics wrestling sneakers for that very reason. Like Danny Carey of Tool, also from LA, he's always wearing Asics wrestling sneakers while he's drumming. And that's it. No other pickups for me. I did not go and pay resale for Undefeated 4. I saw after the sneakers release that the price of them did go down to $315 or so, but then jumped right back up to $360 or so. So technically I was right. That was my range of where I thought the resale price would ultimately land on, at least on my size 12, $360 US or so. But I'll be fine. There's a lot of times where I buy way too many sneakers. But if you stop buying sneakers as regularly for a while and everyone else around you is still buying sneakers at the regular clip, it really becomes noticeable that it's oh, wow, I guess I do the same thing. So I'm sure it'll flip around. I'm sure my luck will turn around. So onward and upward, I guess. Some recent releases, there was these Supreme Dunks that came out, and they had a couple that were regional exclusives. And unfortunately, the best colorways were regional exclusive, especially that Hulk colored one. And I was asked to do a Mr. Brightside for these, and I was like, is that really necessary? Were people really clamoring for these really bad? I'm not really sure what Supreme is up to these days. If they are just focusing on plain kind of collabs, these GR looking collabs, if it's a matter of increasing stock and having them look like GRs and everyone's happy, that's one thing. But they are in a position where they can do interesting things and make interesting sneakers, and they haven't had an interesting Nike collab in a long time. The last one I remember is the Bacon that was rainbow trout color, and since then it's just been GR looking DNs and these Dunk SBs. So I don't know. With the way sneakers have been this year and the Tom Sachs release that I'll talk about as well too, it seems like it's been a let's make people happy collab year and not a let's do something new and interesting type of year. Another sneaker that came out was the HSDT Adidas Intimidation. And this is HAL Studios, and they redesigned to HAL Studios Design Thinking, which is HSDT. And I'm not sure why they did this rename. I don't think it's a good idea, especially when you put all that effort out and you got HAL Studios as a known name with a good product, and now you change it to HSDT, which is not exactly memorable in my opinion. But what was interesting about this release was that the tariffs are in effect, the duties are in effect. So they are based in Australia, and if you wanted these sneakers, you had to pay $130 extra for shipping, which includes tariff included shipping. So I don't know how many people in the US were going to do that. So the unintended effect of this is that if you have a collaborator that's international and they have an exclusive, that is almost a regional exclusive then, because who would pay $130 on top for tariffs and duties and all that? Usually the point of a collab is to get your name out there and known. And if you are just stuck in Australia for the most part, and the only people outside of Australia got the sneaker are the photographers and the influencers, I'm not sure those influencers are going to influence me to spend $130 on top for tariffs and duties. So brands and collaborators might need to rethink some of this exclusive stuff if they have international collaborators and have them drop on the Adidas site or the Asics site. Another recent release that I've been thinking about is the Jaw 3. And there's a lot of people that like this shoe, and it's very colorful and it's got a lot going on it. I personally am out on the Jaw sneakers, especially after the first one that I was so excited for. And then when I got it in hand, it looked like a deflated Muppet that someone sat on. So maybe this one has a better structure on it. But the first thought that I had when I saw these sneakers is that it almost looked like a counter to the Puma Mellow Ball sneakers, which are very colorful and very bright. And if you walk into a Foot Locker, you see that fluorescent wall of Pumas. And if on the Nike side, you see a whole bunch of colors, maybe this is geared then to the children that play basketball. So maybe it's a hit in GS sizes. Maybe it'll be a good hooper shoe for high school and college, maybe. Because, the book one on that wall that looks like an ACG sneaker from the 90s is not really going to appeal to some 14-year-old hooper. So maybe this will do it. And a shoe for children is not a bad thing in the main topic that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, and talk about how there's more things in general are shifting away from children and more to the spenders. But if this is a sneaker that's geared for children, that's not a bad thing. Another sneaker that came out was the Yu-Gi-Oh! 95s. And as I talked about in the last episode, I think these sneakers are really good. I thought it was a really well done collaboration. And I don't know anything about this cartoon or card game or whatever it is. I looked it up and it came out in 1999. Like, I was in university in 1999. So I'm an old man. So I should not be knowing anything about this stuff. But I thought the shoe was really nice. Would I wear the shoe if I had it? Sure, I would wear it. And then it gets into the whole thing where, like, you don't know anything about the cards. Why are you wearing it? And I don't know anything about skateboarding either, but I'll wear a Dunk SB. So it's a blurry line, however you want to do it. But no need to worry. I did not get the sneaker. It's like a dot swoosh sneaker that they're doing, which is shifted away from this crypto stuff that they started at. And, kind of rugged me for that NFT that they sold. I didn't get jack shit from that NFT. And now it's more nostalgia for millennials, and I'm not a millennial. But one noteworthy thing is that when that Kobe 3 dropped on Sneakers app, that was a pre-order. It was on Sneakers app, but if you got like the order confirmation was through Dot Swoosh. And they've done a pre-order type of thing with the Kai Cenat Air Max 1 Poly as well too. So they're dipping their toes in pre-order. But when it comes to a sneaker like this that is hype, that they know people will want, then all of a sudden there's no such thing as pre-order. Then it's like, sorry, man, there's only 6,000 pairs, 7,000 pairs that the monitor merchants tell you. So they obviously can do pre-orders, but they don't want to. There's a new Asics collab that has 7 collaborators, which has to be a record. This is kind of like the Asics version of Consortium that Adidas did. The collaborators include multiple stores, including Extra Butter, Concepts, Feature, Sneaker Politics, Lapstone and Hammer, Ama Manier, and Somewhere DC. And the sneaker is the Asics Gel Cumulus 16, and the name of the sneaker is called Tomo, which means friendship in Japanese, which is the friendship among all these consortium stores. And I was watching the video on the Asics Instagram showing all the collaborators one by one talking about it. They said, yeah, the concept is really a mood ring. And that's what ties all the colors together on the Asics stripes and stuff. And I was like, a bunch of like grown adult men made the concept a mood ring? Isn't the Tomo thing enough of a concept already? It's like, you guys are like adult men and you guys' concept is mood rings, which is something for preteen girls, for grade 7 girls. Sorry, I didn't Americanize it. 7th grade girls. When is the last time any of these men sat around waxing nostalgic about all the times they wore mood rings when they were in grade 6? I just thought it was such a bullshit concept to kind of, force a concept on there. They don't even need it. The concept is Tomo, friendship. Here's us all together, blending, blah, blah, blah. I could write the copy right now. I just wrote it. So, the shoe is fine. I don't have anything against the shoe. The shoe looks pretty good. Honestly, I just thought this concept of a mood ring in the video was just laugh out loud hilarious to me, because I want to know when any of these adult men last time they wore a mood ring. And if they're saying it, no, this is for our daughters or something, then say that. They're obviously not that. They're just forcing something on there. And, you saw this with Sean Witherspoon 97, which was kind of like a group design collaboration that multiple people had different pieces on it. I guess the same here. If you say the 7 people came together and made a shoe, you can't just have it be 2 colors. Yeah, it's black and white. Then it's like, what the rest of you guys do? You just sat around, talked about black and white? No, you gotta like have multiple colors on it or multiple patterns, and then you have to force a concept on it. There's some upcoming Vans. There's a Souvenir Red coming out. This is the Chanel bag knockoff or tribute, I guess. And when this released early at Sneaker Politics in Dallas, there was lineups outside the door, I guess, waiting all night. And friend of the show, Caesar, was the one who posted the photos that went around everywhere on all the sneaker blogs and stuff as well too. So I don't know, lining up for Vans, something that I never thought I'd see. I guess this is what we're doing in 2025, lining up for Vans. And these are just a GR Vans sneaker. They're not a collab or anything. It's not a Chanel official collab. It's just a tribute. And friend of the show, Jaleesa, was talking about how they could be restocking quarterly because that's what they did with Yacht Club. And I could see that. It'd be hilarious if they do. People be lining up for nothing. So if you wanted them, maybe wait out, maybe check if they'll restock next quarter. If not, I guess you're going to pay $400 for Vans. I don't know. I wouldn't do it. And another Vans sneaker that caught my eye recently is an actual collab. It's a collab with some guy called Mattias Gollin, which is some Euro designer. And it's a Vans authentic low top, which has some sort of beads or crystals or pearls all over it. And I guess that's the guy's gimmick. But what really caught my eye was the ads that he had on Instagram for these, where it was some women in a bikini holding up the sneakers. And in one of the photos, the sneakers were like literally on top of her ass, which I haven't seen in ages. In North America, they haven't done that in ages. I don't know what Mattias Gollin is. I'm assuming he's Italian, but he must have been at this photo shoot directing it, talking to this girl in a bikini, being like, yes, bellissima, yes, could you lie down by the pool here? And I'm just gonna come over there and put the sneaker on your ass. Is that okay? Is that okay? I think it'll be a bellissima photo. Very good. Grazie. Okay. Can you move the sneaker closer to your butthole? Oh, yeah. Oh, bellissima. Grazie. Basically, that's how I imagined it was like. And, they're Italian or whatever. It's part of their culture, I guess. But we get these corny photos of it, and we haven't seen them in a long time. And if it's degrading, I'm sorry that happened. But also, thank you, I guess. Another upcoming sneaker that's been making the rounds in terms of marketing has been the Jordan 3 SoleFly Miami Hurricanes. And the owners of SoleFly have been, at the games wearing them. They've been getting DJ Khaled to ask for them, and celebrities like Mike Tyson, and of course, like Hurricanes alums like Ed Reed and Jimmy Johnson have been getting the pairs and like posting them on social media. And this had Complex asking, does SoleFly have Rollout of the Year? ? I saw a lot of opinionated responses to this question. I guess it's a good engagement conversation starter that will get people reacting, especially when the year is not over, or they had other sneakers that they liked more that had better rollouts, like the Bread One white glove thing, the Undefeated 4, the Tom Sachs one that's still in progress, the unheard of Piggy Runner, which had, people oinking on the timeline for a pair. And so far, this SoleFly thing is still kind of a pre-rollout because there hasn't been any official photos or an official campaign or official social media posts. So yeah, the year is not over. I guess we do have to wait for it to play out. But this got me thinking about this Substack post I saw last month by Emily Sundberg, and it was all about how there's a shift in how people are engaging with brand content in social media comments. And the comments will talk about how something has really good marketing. The example is that when Astronomer had that whole Coldplay incident and they got Gwyneth Paltrow to do a campaign or ad for them, and people were in the comments like, oh, the marketing team needs a raise. And this happens all the time, especially in sneakers as well too. And I'm not immune to this. I definitely talk about sneaker marketing when it's good on here. I've also said in previous episodes that Sneakerheads don't just want the sneaker to be good. They want the promotion, the marketing to be good. And sometimes when there's a lack of marketing, there's people are upset. Like, why can't you do a better campaign with this? Or why couldn't you do something new and creative with this instead of this tired cliche of getting DJ Khaled to show your sneaker? And really, it's sneakerheads wanting to uplift themselves to make them feel good about being a sneakerhead. Like if Michael Jordan did a commercial, like he actually appeared in a commercial for Jordan sneakers, and say he's like, walking down in a hotel lobby and he's ignoring a bunch of kids who are like, trying to get autographs, and he's walking right past them. And he goes outside and there's a group of sneakerheads all in like NT denim there, and they all dap him up. And it said something like, Jordans are made for sneakerheads. Of course, every sneakerhead would go crazy. This is the rollout of the year. People have been craving for good product to have good marketing and for it to be creative and original. There's nothing wrong with that. And there was a quote to Emily's post by an author, W. David Marks, that has been bouncing around in my head since I saw it. And it said something like, when capitalism is the only value system, then saying something is good marketing is the highest compliment you can give it. So maybe one day the best sneaker rollout may be a bigger award than best sneaker of the year. I don't know. I should move on before another EMP hits me again. Another upcoming sneaker this holiday 2025 is the Costco Kirkland Signature SB Dunk Low. And when these images first came out, I thought, this has got to be a custom or AI. It looked a little too good for it to be AI. And then it came out that no, this is actually real. This is coming out this holiday season. And if you haven't seen it, it looks like basically just a gray tracksuit on a Dunk SB. And of course, it's going to hit anyone who likes going to Costco, that likes having the $1.50 hot dog and pop combo. And it's kind of, tongue-in-cheek and fun in that Nike SB sort of way. However, just thinking about this kind of stuff long term, it is kind of odd seeing the stewards of skating culture like Supreme and Nike SB moving so much more into this dad culture phase where they're doing products for the older people like myself and not as much for the youth out there. I joked on Twitter that youth culture is being monopolized by dad culture. And this, of course, is kind of natural if the people that are there are getting older and they like dad things and they like Supreme accessories to be dad, lawnmower tools and things like that. And I'm not immune to that. I love dad shit. I love these kind of products. But I'm just thinking in terms of long term and who are you really making the products for and who did you originally make the products for? It wasn't for dads when you started out. It was for the youth. It was for the kids. And the further you veer away from that, the further your calling and reason to be has shifted and changed. And is that for the better? This makes sense if the people at these companies have been around for a long time and they're getting older and they're dads. And now they want to, apply the culture that they currently have to the products and the companies that they've been stewarding for so long. All that makes sense, and all that can create things like the Costco Kirkland sneaker shoe or some, barbecue Supreme accessory or something. I just think they've been leaning too far into this dad culture and not enough into the youth culture stuff. Like Nike SB used to do collabs with bands like Dinosaur Jr., Deftones, MF Doom, De La Soul, all that kind of stuff. And now it's like, yeah, we're doing Bed Bath & Beyond type of live, laugh, love sneakers and Kirkland, Costco sneakers, and also any big company that wants to collab with us like Doritos or Chunky Dunk. And sure enough, sometimes they make good product, but I don't know. I just think if dad culture is monopolizing youth culture, then what are the youth to do? What are they going to think is cool? Probably not the thing that the dads think is cool. And like, who are they looking to and listening to now? They're listening to Sleep Token or Turnstile or Knocked Loose. And those could be SBs. I know Turnstile recently did a collab with Carpet Company, and that's a good example of following the youth, listening to what the youth are doing. So the smaller companies are doing it, and the big companies like Nike used to do this, and they haven't been doing it as much lately. And I'll talk more about this whole kind of shift towards the older crowd, towards the more affluent crowd in the main segment later. Some recent sneaker news, there are some lawsuits involving Nike, and especially the Nike and StockX lawsuit was finally settled. The terms were not disclosed, but apparently StockX is discontinuing their NFT vault product that they were doing. And just a reminder that in that lawsuit, Nike seemed to care a lot about StockX's authentication process. And the reason they cared a lot about customers potentially getting fake sneakers was because it helped their argument that the real sneaker in this vault that is represented by an NFT could potentially be fake. So what about now? Is Nike still very concerned about the possibility of fakes slipping through StockX and going to the end consumer? No, they're not. It all just seemed like a point to be made in an argument made by lawyers to win a case. And did they win this case? I guess they killed an NFT project that no one really gives a shit about right now, and they spent a lot of money doing it. But then again, they did rug everyone who bought a dot swoosh NFT for $20, and maybe they used that money to pay for the lawyers. Some other Nike lawsuits that have been in the news recently, there was one where Nike sued Edison Chen and Juice Store, and also recently Don C of RSVP Gallery. And both were related to unpaid bills. There was a whole story about Edison Chen's story where it was $120 million. And, that couple hours where we thought they were suing him for $120 million, it's like, man, they must really hate the dude to sue the guy for $120 million. They only sued Shoe Surgeon for like $60 million. But that was just a typo and it was like $120K or something. And now Nike's like, where's the money? You see, my wife here, she's been most vocal on the subject of the monies that you owe us. Where's the money? When are you going to get the money? Why aren't you getting the money now? And so on. And so they finally sued Don C and Edison Chen. And what it tells me is that it seems like they must be done with these guys as collaborators if they're willing to sue them. Obviously, they're done with Edison Chen because he's at Adidas right now. But Don C, RSVP Gallery, that is at least newsworthy. I could be wrong. Maybe this is just whatever business is business, and that's true. But if you're going to sue someone for $190K and then later go, hey, when are you going to do another Jordan 2 for me? Doesn't seem likely. But Nike suing these stores tells you somewhat the state of Nike product at these types of boutiques. Are these boutiques being mismanaged and they're not connecting with their local customers? Or is the state of Nike products stale and not moving? Is it priced too high? In this case, the answer is probably yes. All of the above. The stores are probably like, give us the good product. Give us the stuff that moves well and is reasonably priced that people want. Nike's like in the movie Glengarry Glen Ross. Like, you want the Glengarry leads? What have you done to deserve the Glengarry leads? You sell the shit you have first, and then maybe we'll think about giving you the Glengarry leads, the good product. It just seems like Nike has moved on from these types of retailers, the one that can't move product, and just shifted the product to the ones that can. Another story that was in the news recently was that Mike Cherman of Market, formerly known as Chinatown Market, is kind of threatening on his Instagram stories to bring back the name Chinatown Market. Probably because that's when he had buzz, and he hasn't had any of that type of buzz for his market store for a long time. And he probably feels like he was canceled, and in this current cultural climate that we're in now, that's no longer really a thing. You can't really be canceled for cultural appropriation, it seems. When he went on the apology tour and finally renamed the store and did the apology and promised to do right, were those all lies? Absolutely, he was lying. He was just trying to keep his company alive, and now he regrets it. And then what about all his Asian friends that stood by him and defended him and maybe even helped him work through the issue behind the scenes? These are people like Bobby Hundreds and Gian De Leon and people like that. Now it's like a spit in the face because these are the people that came up in the scene with him and they are his friends and they are Asian. And now it's like, yeah, whatever, let's go back to Chinatown Market because, the Trump is the president right now. But really, losing the buzz that he has is nobody's fault but his own. It's Mike Cherman's fault that no one gives a shit about a store named Market. Since the rename, he hasn't released anything interesting. He's basically lost his edge in terms of gaining interest in product that you make, which is really the core part of your whole business. And now it's like cancel culture's fault that he's no longer good at designing something or has a good eye. It's not cancel culture's fault. It's your fault. And of course, the renaming of the store. He renamed it to such a generic name. He renamed it to Market. That's like calling your store a store. Hey, come by the store to buy all the cool t-shirts that I have. Oh, great. What's it called? It's the store. Yeah, that's what I'm asking. What's it called? It's called the store. It sounds so stupid because the generic market name that he chose is stupid. And I had heard that he wanted to call it Canal Street Market because Canal Street is known for bootlegs, but he couldn't because there's already a copyright on that. So whatever he wants to do, maybe he will rename it. Maybe no one will care. Maybe he'll regain his buzz back, but I doubt it. Also in the news was Anne Freeman, formerly known as Anne Hebert of Nike, whose son was West Coast Joe, and the scandal that came out where he was allegedly reselling and she was allegedly helping him out. She's reemerged. She has a new last name. Her name is now Anne Freeman, and she was named president of Foot Locker in North America by the parent company, Dick's Sporting Goods. And there was a lot of people upset about this news. They were like, how could she get a nice cushy job again? Is she going to do the same kind of thing and help her son backdoor everything from Foot Locker again? And that she doesn't really deserve a second chance. And, it's a question of what you believe she actually did. And then from that, does she deserve a second chance? Because there's a lot of myths of what she did. Well, people think that she was backdooring sneakers with her son, loading sneakers off a truck directly from the sneakers app and Nike right to the market and profiting off it. There's all these photos that seemingly back it up. There's a photo of West Coast Joe, her son, in front of a storage locker with a whole bunch of off-white Jordan 5s. People think they all came from Sneakers app, but do you know where they came from? They actually came from Stadium Goods. If you just zoom in on the box, you'll see the Stadium Goods sticker there. And that was because at one time, Stadium Goods had them all under market value. Say the market value was $800 at the time, they were selling them for $650. And at the time, resellers would buy and hold. I would buy and hold product all the time because the products would go up. He was buying them for $650 and then knowing that he could sell them later for $1,000 each. And Stadium Goods probably got all those sneakers directly from New Guards Group, which owned Off-White at the time. So those 5s did not come from Sneakers app. But people think they came from Sneakers app because the scandal broke out. They saw those photos. You put 2 and 2 together. She's helping her son unload the truck of sneakers wearing all black outfit. When essentially what she did was she backed the credit cards her son used. He went off and, used bots or went to the employee store. That's the other thing she probably did. Gave him and his friends employee store access to the Nike store there. And if you know what's at those stores, it's usually just discounted GRs. It's very rarely like heat product. And actually, that's what a lot of resellers at the time and still do is their bread and butter is just moving GRs in bulk quantity and making small profits on each of them. So those couple of things there are a violation of Nike's code of conduct. But if it blows up online and on Complex and all that kind of stuff, then you got a problem because the optics are bad. So she resigned from Nike. She was not fired. She was head of North America at Nike at the time. It was probably just agreed upon to save face that, hey, you can quit and then you won't be fired. Otherwise, you're going to be fired. So knowing all that, do you believe in second chances? Do you believe that she was active participant in backdooring from Sneakers app? Or do you think she was just a parent of privilege helping her idiot son? So personally, I believe in second chances. I believe she can change her name and move on from the scandal. I don't think she has to pay the penalty of not having a career or a job because of her idiot son forever. She's probably a really good executive. She was president of North America Nike, so she's probably really qualified to be president of North America Foot Locker. Other people might disagree with this take. I just encourage you to go back and listen to my old podcast in full, in detail. It's like episode 19 or 20 or so. And I had all these takes back then as well too. I gave the full detail of what West Coast Joe was doing and how mom was involved and what the facts were, but sometimes the optics override the facts. Soul Retriever was reporting that GOAT app is shutting down facilities in UK and Asia. Soul Retriever says the sources have told them that they have reached out to sellers on the GOAT alias app to ship back their products from these facilities. So if you were doing GOAT storage at these facilities, we're shutting down, get your stuff. And I'm pretty confident that this is almost completely because of the de minimis change, the $800 de minimis change that the US implemented. Before, anyone could buy a sneaker from GOAT and you might get it shipped from Hong Kong or UK or whoever. There's a difference in price on sneakers in some of these regions. Some of them release sneakers early, and a lot of the market is in the US, especially for under retail recent sneakers. So if you want to get black toe Jordan 1s or something, and they are sitting in Europe and they are discounting them heavy, but not so much here, maybe, sort of a discount here. But the retailers and the resellers that are there can list them all, make these apps be a graveyard of under market, under retail prices of sneakers, and the American consumer would buy it. Because a product under $800 could be shipped to the US without any charge. Now, you're going to be charged like $120 on top of that. So no one is going to buy $70 black toe Jordan 1s if you're being charged $120 on top. That market just disappeared overnight. And I can confirm I basically heard the same thing, similar to what GOAT is reporting, that overnight after those changes went into effect, that orders dropped significantly to the point where the only ones worth probably listing now are grails or super rare sneakers, where it's worth it to go through the whole customs duty process. I'm sure StockX is having similar issues. I don't know the extent of how far they've reached international, but if they are all of a sudden having to become more regional, meaning the UK sellers have to sell to UK, and same here in Canada, Canada has to sell more to Canada, whatever workarounds that they used to have are no longer there because of this de minimis change. I'm sure there's other reasons as well too of the changing market in UK and Asia and who wants sneakers in terms of trends and stuff, but overnight, under retail sneaker that were available to the US market is no longer available is the reason why this is happening. Okay, let's recap this whole Tom Sachs release. And upfront, a disclaimer, I was of course a fan of Tom Sachs, of the sneakers before, of him being an artist. He was someone who had a point of view and was doing interesting work, I thought. He made a cool sneaker, the Mars Yard 1.0 and the 2.0 and the whole NASA connection. I bought it, I paid resale for it for like $690, $700 US, and I wore it. And then the price went like sky high. That's all well and good. And then the story comes out that he's actually not a good guy. He's kind of abusive as a boss. And basically said, the emperor has no clothes. Literally, on Zoom calls, no clothes. And so personally, I simply cannot buy him as some genius artist anymore. If he's a rich, eccentric weirdo who loves power over people, no art can really undo that. No sneaker can really undo that. And so when he's talking about rituals and the value of good work and all that kind of stuff, it comes across to me personally as fake and not authentic. However, for others, for nerds who like to tinker in the garage, or for Koreans, he represents them. He's an artist they like. Him being mean to employees is unfortunate, but it doesn't really matter in the long run. I mean, he said he's sorry. What else do you want? Then for others, a sneaker is just a sneaker. It's just leather and rubber and foam. It doesn't have morals. And if it resells for a lot, that's a bonus. That will help improve my life right now. So that's the state of Tom Sachs. I don't want to go into the whole morality thing and how he was treated by Nike versus how Kyrie was treated. I've talked a lot about that on the record in previous episodes already. But I should add, I did not go for this Mars Yard 3.0. I did not do all the challenges or anything. I really stopped at like 330 points or so. I watched some of the videos. I did a couple of joke posts, and really that's it. Other times I was just testing out the app to see how it worked, and that's all. I guess I could have done a little bit bare minimum more and got up to whatever it is, 700, 800 points, and then got an invoice for a pre-order or whatever, but Because I already have the 2.0, I still like the 2.0 despite all my issues with him, which I've been honest about and open about in the past as well too. For a long time, I did not even wear the sneaker. I didn't know what to do with it. And so I've since been wearing it here and there and not very often. And I have the 2.0, so I'm good. I didn't necessarily need the 3.0, but because the 2.0 was so rare, I totally understand why there's this big need and desire in the sneaker community to get that sneaker, to covet that sneaker. Especially if to you, a sneaker is just a sneaker, it's just rubber and foam and canvas, or he's just a mean boss and that's it. Whatever it is, it's a personal choice. I'm not judging. But for this drop, how they had this whole challenge-based app thing where you had to upload every day during the month of August, especially, there was like a lot of anxiety from the people who were doing these rituals and uploading every single day. It was all related to like, how many points can I get? I need to get as many points as possible because all signs are there's going to be very few pairs and there's people out there gaming the system, abusing the 7-day streak glitch and all that kind of stuff and getting bonus points because, I don't know, they're friends or connected somehow, or they just did a good doodle drawing that day. And then people were like eventually like bailing out. This is too much work. Especially if you're going on vacation, you don't have time to make a medicine ball if you're on vacation. And so when all that was happening, I thought, okay, there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings when they do this drop, because for the people who did all the work, they got all the max points, but if there's only 5,000 pairs, let's say, then there's going to be the second tier after that who also did a lot of the work, missed a few days, but then missed out. So it's like, if you did most of the work, you didn't get bonuses, and you missed like 7 days, 10 days, whatever it is, you're going to be upset if you did all that for nothing. That's just human nature when it comes to, I did all this work and I got nothing out of it. But of course, as we learned, is that Tom Sachs solved this problem in that they had pairs in hand for the top tier of points. And for that second tier, they essentially did a pre-order where you get an invoice, you pay now, and it ships next year. And those are the tier of points where you're like 800 to 1,000. It's all size based. So I saw some people say that they were in high 700s and got an invoice. And so maybe that's how it works for like a size 5.5, but probably not for size 14. But by doing this, what you've done is rewarded that second tier. They'll just have to wait till next year, but they'll get the sneaker. It's just deferred a bit. And that leaves only like that third tier, the people with the points afterwards, with the 300 to 700 type of points. Those are the people that missed out. For those people, then it's fine to say, hey, well, if you just tried harder, you would have got the pre-order at least, but you didn't. You couldn't really say that to someone who did 1,000 points and missed out if there was no pre-order. So was this the grand plan all along, to always do a secret pre-order? My guess, probably not. It was probably something that they just had to shift into doing. I think if they announced it early on, hey, we're going to do this system, we got pairs in hand, and for the second tier, we're going to do a pre-order, it would have been a lot different. I think there wouldn't have been the anxiety that people experienced. People would have been like, oh, okay, I'll have fun. I'll do it. I don't have to do it all. So if it was planned all along, they didn't want to tell you that it's planned all along. They wanted it to be a surprise, I guess. Or they shifted. They shifted and saw how many people were using the app, and then they realized what I was talking about, that there's going to be a lot of people upset in that 800 to 1,000 points range. And so then they came up with this plan of a pre-order. Or maybe it was just like a backup plan that got activated when they saw that there was enough people using the app. In terms of stock estimates, that's where like that anxiety of points came from. There's a number out there that there's 10,000 pairs. I don't know, but like if you just divide, it's 5,000 for the app and 5,000 for worldwide retailers, and then maybe they did 5,000 pre-order, that means like 15,000. I don't know, that's just a round number I'm using. But there was some sort of cutoff. They didn't just have an unlimited pre-order. They eventually did cut it off. So it could be 5,000, it could be 2,000, it could be 10,000. I don't know. But the retail release is interesting in that they're asking stores to check ID numbers, to write that down when they do the raffle. And then they're also asking some stores to have a minimum number of points. Around 350 is the point number I've seen. I think in Japan, there was one that had 500 points. So this assumes that the retailers have to write down everyone's name, they have to write down their ID or their and then submit this all, I guess, to Nike, to Tom Sachs, and that these are the winners and these are their IDs. And then maybe that's when they're going to upload it on their app that you got allocated the sneaker in store. This has also created anxiety in that what if Nike is checking? What if they are uploading the ID, see that you've already been allocated, and then denying you? And then are the retailers supposed to do that? Is Nike asking them to do all these extra checks? And if that's the case, it's like, who is really running this raffle? Is Nike running all the raffles and dictating to the stores how it should go? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of people have anxiety and want to know what the answer is. I don't know. They're just making all these retailers do a lot of extra work. Are they being paid extra to do all this extra work? Probably not. But like, as I was talking about with the Don C and RSVP gallery, it's like, Nike's probably thinking you should be grateful that you got the good product. You got the Tom Sachs product. You got the Glengarry leads. People are out there trying to sell Vomeros for like $180 and you got the like prime Glengarry leads here. So it does say something that Nike is doing so much of this work for Tom Sachs, for his image rehab. Who is calling the shots? Is it Nike or is it Tom Sachs? Is it Nike on behalf of Tom Sachs? How much money was spent building that app, and did Tom Sachs pay for it or did Nike pay for it? For other releases, they haven't really done this much marketing blitz. So, Tom Sachs came back from this controversy where he was treated very badly, apparently. And when he came back, he was like, yeah, this is how it's going to go. And you're going to follow everything that I say. You're going to lock down all these retailers from backdooring. You're going to build me an app and we're going to enforce all these rules on the raffle. And you're going to love it because I'm Tom Sachs and I bully people. And Nike was like, sure, whatever you say, boss. There's not very many like early pairs out there. The friends and family access, from what I heard from a close friend, is that it was very hard to get. And I didn't see big backdooring flexing happening before the release. You didn't see the Soul Street resellers out there with stacks of them selling them on their IG stories. It is kind of wild that they were able to lock down all these retailers from backdooring. And if they can do that, why don't they do that all the time? Probably because they don't want to. But if Tom Sachs yells at you that you must, then I guess you must. Somehow these stores will wet their beak however they can. If they have to submit the ID numbers or whatever, or say, someone didn't come pick up their pairs, whatever it is, I'm sure they'll find the weakness and figure it out. I previously said on Twitter that the lore of Mars Yard is that it has a high resale price. And so that they will do whatever they can to protect the lore of the Mars Yard. Because if you flood the market and the resale price goes down, there's no more lore then. Why would anyone jump through hoops for the 4.0? But as of right now, as I'm recording this, the raffles are happening today. And so the resale price seems to be holding for now. There's not a wide net of retailers that got them. Like, remember when the Tiffany Air Force One came out? Like, every retailer had those, at least a size run or two. Whereas here, there's only 2 stores in Canada. It's Haven and Better Gift Shop. And even that store, Better Gift Shop, I hadn't even heard of them until a couple of years ago. And now all of a sudden, they get everything. But I was wrong. The lore seems to be holding on for now. A month of challenges and rituals and movies, I guess, will do that. The resale price holding will do that. And if the pre-order number is only like 1,000, 2,000, whatever it is, even 5,000, if that will hold the resale price high, then the lore will stay. I was also wrong because I didn't think they would do a pre-order at all. I assumed they were only going to drop the pairs that they had in hand and didn't even consider that they would do a pre-order. But if you think about it, Nike is in the making people happy era. They made people happy with Galaxy foams, Tokyo 5s coming out, and of course the Undefeated 4s. This was a successful release. It was a very long release. It was a very convoluted release where you're literally jumping through hoops. But it wasn't a first come first serve release and it wasn't a raffle. But it was still anxiety inducing in all the other ways that those other releases can. But ultimately, people are happy. The tinkerers are happy. Hopefully the Koreans are happy. The resellers are happy. It was easy enough for them to upload some bullshit pictures and get the sneaker. So after many difficult years for Tom Sachs, he finally got what he wanted. Instead of bullying his own employees, he got to bully Nike into releasing the sneaker exactly how he wanted. He got Nike to lock down these retailers from backdooring as much as they used to. So maybe he finally did use his bullying powers for good. I don't know if it's for good, but at least he made people happy. Just to add on to this segment, an addendum, I had recorded that whole segment before I saw that Tom Sachs appeared on the Complex Sneaker Podcast. And on there, he did two main things. He kind of gave a non-answer about his past and his workplace and what happened and pressing pause on his project. He was like, yeah, what can you do, huh? I'm laser focused and moving on. He did not give a shit about that stuff at all. He was like, yeah, we're looking forward. We're doing fine. This project is an example of that. I'm laser focused. And as I've criticized him in the past, laser focus is corporate speak. Whenever you see an artist talking like that, that's not a true artist. That's corporate speak. That's a lawyer talking. So either this person is a corporate executive who cares about money and commerce, or he's an artist that talks like a real human. And in this part, he was not talking like a real human at all. He was an automaton and not an artist. And that is honestly the harshest critique of an artist that I can give, that you care more about commerce and you're not human. Like, the whole point of art is to make you feel. But he's friends with Mark Parker. And he said that on the podcast. And being friends with Mark Parker means you can get away with a lot of things. I guess it means you can even bully Nike around because, hey, my friend Mark Parker here, he's my buddy. I'm just going to text him if you're mean to me. And then the second thing was this loser shoe, which I can't really believe that Nike is making. The company that brought you Just Do It, winning isn't for everyone, is now saying, hey, here's a badge for 5th place. It's not even 5th place. It's like 10,000, 50,000th place. Here's a participation story because trying is what really matters. Like, if I was a Nike executive, I would say, hey, our whole brand identity and values is about the athlete and winning. It's not about, hey, at least you tried. Here's a prize for trying. And even the brand ethos of Tom Sachs itself, he's like, do rituals and shit like that, jump through the hoops because jumping through the hoops will get you what you really want. Whatever bullshit that the camp was all about. Now he's saying, hey, thank you, losers. Here's the loser sneaker for you. Please wear the loser sneaker if you couldn't go through the process of winning. And so we can make money off the losers and we can make money off the winners. On one side, you can charge a premium, a high price, and have people jump through hoops. And for everyone else, you can make a consolation prize. You can literally call them losers. The key there is you can try to at least make money from both. And this clear separation is happening, and some of the smarter companies are focusing on both, trying to make money from both. But I'll talk about that in the main segment. For my main topic, I'm going to talk about how there's been this kind of a shift towards the more affluent customer. But before that, I wanted to kind of lead up to it with this SSense bankruptcy that's happened. It's actually a bankruptcy protection, which is a little bit different than actually going bankrupt. And a lot of this is because of all these tariffs and de minimis changes that have really affected a Canadian business like SSense. Before, they could ship easily to the US, and now it's like cut off at their knees. People are not going to do that extra purchase if it costs $100, $200 more. Even on these expensive items, it could be hundreds and hundreds more. That's when these kind of fun luxury purchases go from fun to, hey, I really don't need this. I'm just going to close my tab here. So they're bailed out for now, but they're not out of the woods by any means. They could still have problems going forward. And honestly, it's not looking that great either. I really do feel bad if they can't make it because I love SSense. SSense has been the best of the best when it comes to online retail stores. No other site features that many models wearing the clothing from multiple angles, all in excellent lighting. Yeah, people have issues with the styling that they do sometimes, but no other site gives you what they give you. Their size guide is the best in the business. The site design has been copied over and over by other sites. Like, they've done a lot of innovation and a lot of good, I thought. They always had good sales. I know people would always wait for the sales. I would wait for the sales. And ultimately, that is probably why the writing was on the wall or is on the wall. And already I'm seeing changes on the site. The size guides for the new items are not updated anymore like they used to be. So if you're having all these kind of money issues, all of a sudden you're not taking the measuring tape out and measuring the length and the chest width anymore. There's also fewer new items. I haven't seen that many new sneakers on there as well too. So it's kind of understandable if you think about it. Like if you are a small brand, let's say, would you send your product to SSense? Like, are you assured they'll be paying you? Oftentimes, like you only get paid when the clothing item sells, and you also might not have a say in how steep their sales go. And I've heard in the past that there have been issues with them even paying out these kind of smaller brands. So even though the visibility and stuff would be great for smaller brands, it's obviously not great not getting paid. So if they're going to do that with small brands, the bigger brands are thinking the same thing. Like, should we send our new line there if we're not going to get paid? Should we send our sneakers there if we're not getting paid? So I expect fewer and fewer products unless they can have some sort of guarantees that you will get paid, that we have become funded for now. But long term, this is just another sign that big multi-brand stores don't work in this day and age, both online and brick and mortar. The Gen X people like me and millennials even, they love big box stores if it's online or in person. But this new generation, they might not feel the same way. There's tons of malls out there that are really hurting. And then there are some malls that are like luxury malls that are doing really well because they're the right luxury stores. They're not the ones that are out of style. For example, Louis Vuitton is doing better than Gucci these days. But Demna is at Gucci and they can turn things around. But of course, it's not dead yet. There's still big box multi-brand stores. Nordstrom is still hanging on. Simon's in Canada is still hanging on. Online, there's My Teresa and Mr. Porter. And I'm sure there's several more that I'm forgetting. But what I said in my Future of Sneaker Retail episode still applies even to like smaller brands, where I called on brick and mortar stores to become smaller and leaner and to do much more private label and do all direct to consumer. So that is the ultimate long-term trend. It's not big multi-brand. There are always going to be exceptions, of course. Kith is an exception. They are multi-brand. They have their own product, their private label stuff, but they also have other stuff. But people do not go to Kith to buy a Casablanca $500 t-shirt. They go to Kith to see the Kith product, to buy Kith treats. Kith gives you a reason to come visit them in the store. Multi-brand, of course, will still live on for boutiques and stuff. And as I talked about with RSVP Gallery and Juice Store and the ones that are being sued by Nike, there are still boutiques that are really well run that give people a reason to come visit them in the store. ALD is a good example of this. They've always given their customers a reason to visit the store. There were lineups at one point. I think the lineups may have been scaled back a little bit, but they are still doing fine, even with this shift to a higher price model that they went on. At the same time, they've had a lot of issues with those collections with the luxury pricing. The quality hasn't been as good. Stuff is sitting. It usually goes on sale. The customer has learned to kind of wait till the end of the season sale. But even with sales, they are probably making really good money on the product that they do have because the key products sell through, and because it's private label, it's direct to consumer, they probably make high margins on it. So it's sustainable. They've had some bad collections. They've had a couple seasons in a row where it's not very good. But this latest one with the North Face, a lot of that stuff is really nice. So they can turn it around in a season or two. When you go this way, when you go to this higher price model, it's hard to go back. It's hard to start selling $800 jackets and then, shift down to selling $300 jackets. Sure, they could do it, but it would be a stark contrast. Whereas Kith has kind of maintained two tiers. They have created this ultra rich high level tier, especially with this Kith Ivy paddle club that they're doing, where you pay a yearly fee of something crazy like 30, 40,000 and an annual fee of 7,000, and you go and you play fancy pickleball or whatever it is there. They're doing Swarovski crystal bats and shit like that. And so they have this clear tier that we are aiming for the luxury model now. At the same time, having a first tier, their original tier, that streetwear, here's the Rice Krispie collab, here's the Jack Sparrow collab, whatever. Week to week, they can shift between the two. They can have Rice Krispies one week and an Armani collab the next week. and the Rice Krispie stuff could sell out really quickly, and the Armani stuff could sit for a long time. However, the price is so high on all that stuff that if it eventually sells out, you made a ton more money on the Armani stuff. You have two tiers. Kith is creating this ultra-rich Soho model paddle club because they are confident that they can sell memberships to it. They wouldn't do it otherwise. Why would a business do it? And so if people are willing to pay this much money, give those people what they want. Give those affluent customers what they want. They want Erewhon in New York. They want a paddle in New York. And if that is not Kith to you, then we have a Rice Krispies collab next week. Maybe that'll be more your liking. There was an article in the New York Times about Disney and visiting Disneyland or Disney World that very much inspired some of these thoughts that made me want to collect this all into this segment. The article is called Disney and the Decline of America's Middle Class, and it talked about how Disneyland and Disney World used to be much more affordable for the middle class. There was basically a single system. Everyone had to line up for rides. They all went to the same restaurants. Eventually, they started adding different tiers, meaning you could bypass certain lines if you paid an extra amount. You can go to a certain restaurant if you were staying at the hotel. And then after COVID especially, they started shifting towards this customer base very heavily to the rich, affluent customer that could afford to stay at these expensive on-site hotels, pay for the line bypasses, pay for the expensive lunches and dinners where you can meet Mickey Mouse and stuff like that. There's like full-on private clubs in there where you have to be invited, all kinds of tiered systems. And this kind of system did exist before COVID, but the article was about how they shifted even more to this affluent customer because they can simply make more money off them. So there's this general shift happening, and not just in places like Disney or Kith, it's happening in culture in general. So that affects every industry, and they're all using like technology and analytics to focus on the big spenders in their customer base and take advantage of them because you can simply make more money from them. In TV, to watch NFL, you need cable, Amazon Prime, Peacock, YouTube TV. And recently, the NBA commissioner, Adam Silver, was asked about this, about the affordability of having NBA on multiple streaming services and how can an average fan afford it. And he gave a really crazy answer. He basically said, hey, fans who can't afford streaming services can still watch highlights for free on Twitter or YouTube, and that the league is a very highlights-based sport. And his answer was so bad, he was rightly killed for it. David Stern would have been choking on water in his grave if he heard it. Basically saying, yeah, it's tough. You can't afford it. Too bad. Check out the highlights. Do something else, buddy, because we got our money and that's what we care about. Take it up with consumer affairs. The other big player in this is Saudi Arabia. They've been throwing money big time at everything for a while. And it started with WWE a long time ago and then moved on to more live sports like live golf, F1, soccer, and boxing. And years ago, back then, people were like, no, it's going to affect us. We're going to say no. Whereas pro wrestling is a carny thing anyways. And they were like, yeah, we'll gladly take your $50 million a year. WWE is probably going to get $200 million from Saudi Arabia to put WrestleMania in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And there was a quote from a WWE exec at a Goldman Sachs conference where they were asked about how much more money they've been making at live shows that they've been doing in North America as well too. And the exec basically said at this conference, hey, the previous owner, Vince McMahon, he priced for families. He wasn't really trying to maximize profit. He was trying to, think of long-term, get kids involved, and they are future watchers and enjoyers of the product. The new company, the parent company TKO, which also owns the UFC, is not doing that at all. They're maximizing profit. They're selling every ticket for as high as possible and only later dropping the price if they don't sell out. So if this is happening culturally across the board, where companies use, quote, higher yield pricing strategies, end quote, to maximize profit, and places like Saudi Arabia is throwing money around at flag football and comedy festivals, then why can't it happen in sneakers? Why can't it happen in fashion? What if Saudi Arabia says to Nike, hey, we want Saudi exclusive Jordans for the next 10 years. We'll give you $50 million a year. That's $500 million for 10 years. Is Nike saying no? Is MJ saying no? What if MJ says yes, but Nike says no? Does a Nike exec have to go talk to God and say, you got to say no, MJ? 5-6 years ago, this wouldn't happen. It would have been not accepted. Culturally, would not have been accepted. Now, it's a new day. But to step back from that a little bit, Nike has been inching towards this two-tiered system for a while. They've obviously dipped into luxury pricing plenty of times before, and it's also failed plenty of times. They've had successes with like Bin Jordans and, of course, Louis Vuitton, Off-White Air Force Ones and other hits. But they've had flops as well too, like MMW or PRM line. I probably should do a segment on Nike luxury flops sometime in the future. But that wasn't the goal of this. This is more about long-term projection. But overall, Nike knows that their average customer is not affluent. They buy Dunks and Air Force Ones. Every year or two, there's a GR sneaker of the year, Air Force Ones or Dunks or Asics or Sambas. And it's always an affordable sneaker. It's never more than $130 usually, because that is the target price to have a big GR hit. You can't have a lot of people wearing a big GR if they all retail for $170 or $225. The Vomero 5 is not a GR sneaker of the year because retail is $170. If a woman walks into a multi-brand store and compares an Asics 1130 for $110 to a Vomero 5 for $170, they're more likely picking up the Asics 1130, especially if they've seen other people wear it. Or similarly, like a Samba or something, they've seen other people wear it. They know those sneakers are on trend and the Vomero is not. You have not seen people wearing it widely on the streets, and it's way more expensive. Nike knows this. Nike knows that they are not on trend for casual GR sneakers at the moment. They just were with the Dunks, but it moved on to something else. And they've introduced some newer, cheaper models, and they haven't exactly worked out. But if one of them does work out, they could have the next GR hit of the year again. They made all those new models cheap to hit that GR customers. They know they can't radically increase the price on their casual, non-affluent customers. They can raise the floor on all of them a little bit, as they've been doing with the recent price increases, everything from Jordans and GRs and kids sneakers. And even that they did deliberately. They said, this only certain stuff is going up. And then 6 months later, the rest of it went up as well too. A friend of the show, Brandonian, has pointed out that some have random higher prices for similar releases for like no reason at all. One Jordan 5 might be $210, one might be $215, one might be $220. It's almost like they're A/B testing to see if people would still buy. But that's Jordans, and that's like 200 plus. And so that leads to, who is the Nike affluent customer then? There's the GR customer, and then who is the affluent customer? It's runners, for one. The runner is genuinely affluent. They do pretty good in running, I think. Nike has done pretty well recently after slipping pretty low in terms of running. I'm not an expert on running or anything. I'm sure Brooks and others are still doing really good products. But Nike has had some successes with Vomero Plus and Pegasus Premium and the new like Plinko chip one. And those are all high price. They're all like $170 to $220. The ultra tier runner carbon plate ones are like $300 plus sometimes. And who else is affluent? Who else spends a ton on sneakers monthly? Sneakerheads, of course. Who better to test higher prices on than sneakerheads? Hey, if you have a higher yield pricing strategy, you can test it out in this group, no problem. They'll pay the price. And none example better than the Bread One 85 white glove that came out earlier this year. All other 85s were $200, but this one was $250 for no reason at all. It was priced simply higher for the affluent customers because they know they could pay it. They know they would pay it. They know they're not going to say no. It was a real like, gotcha bitch sneaker for them. They know sneakerheads can't stay away. And I'm almost positive they were priced $50 higher just to make up for the fact that they had to make fewer of them. Other examples where they've been testing out this affluent tier sneakers are the China exclusive ones where they do the Wings 85 high Jordans. And those are all priced from like $900 to $1,200 US. And at the time, they know the affluent customer in China likes this kind of stuff. So hey, let's just test it in this market. And I know trends have changed in China as well too. And maybe that's why we've seen more of these types of sneakers on Sneakers app as well too. The Swarovski Jordan 1 Low Shadow, those are like $1,000 and those are on Sneakers app. And I know the Bin 23 line is coming back as well too. So they've been very carefully and very deliberately, I think, moving to this 2-tier system, one for their regular customers and one for the affluent. But as we've seen with Nike and their failures, they could still fail. The product still has to be good. It has to be something that people want, that they're willing to pay the price on it. People are willing to pay $2,000 for UFC or WWE tickets because they like the product. If the product is bad, they won't pay it. Same with Nike, same with their Swarovski crystals, sneakers, and Bin 23 sneakers. Same with their retail experience. Nike also has to give people a reason to visit their stores. Recently, there was a post about Nike's 21 Mercer store, which is closed. And the tweet was basically lamenting that Nike's downfall has happened since they closed that store. And that store closed for a lot of reasons. They did a lot of high heat releases there. And that's always a problem when that's in New York, because all the resellers would come out and New York would New York and it would get shut down. I joked on Twitter that it was probably McKinsey who was advising Nike at the time to cut these because they're cost centers, because the old CEO Donahue was an ex-McKinsey executive. And when he became Nike exec, he hired McKinsey to advise them. And McKinsey basically tells every company to basically just cut everything, lay people off, and they ruin the business, and then they leave the town like, a monorail salesman. And since McKinsey's been gone, and since that CEO has been gone, they've been undoing everything McKinsey advised them to do. So I don't know if they advised them to close 21 Mercer or anything, but I think if Nike 21 Mercer came back today and focused it only on their bespoke sneaker program, it would do really well. If they didn't have any regular releases, the high heat stuff, so there wouldn't be people lined up and causing trouble, there would only be that bespoke service. They could market it as this program for the affluent. Hey, our old price was $800, $1,000. I can't remember what it was, but now it's $3,000. Now it's for the affluent. Now it's for the rich. Simply because the rich are richer and there's more affluent people, and we can cater to them. We can give them higher yield pricing strategies and make more money from them. This probably wouldn't have worked in the past, but now it probably could, because culturally things are just different now. Back then, things were made for children. They were made for the middle class. Now, fuck them kids. Every industry is doing it. You won't be on an island if you ventured out and accepted a huge Saudi deal. Literally every other industry is doing it now. Comedians are doing it. Soon your shareholders will be asking you, why aren't you trying to make money off the rich? Why aren't you implementing higher yield pricing strategy? But for product is still king. You still got to get the product right. If you can get the product right, you can cash in. And for the customer who can't afford those, you can still see the highlights of other people flexing on Twitter for free. This has been the SockJig Sneaker Podcast. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. And please go fuck yourself.